This is the little coffee roaster I bought off Amazon to try roasting coffee at home. It's sold by 5 or 6 different people under different names on Amazon. It looks the same in all the pictures to me, so it's just pick your price. One thing I found when I got it is that this little rod, it was kind of tweaked when I unpacked it. One arm was bent up a little ways, so it was about a 1/4 inch off the bottom of the bed here. So I used vice grips and bent that back into place. It's pretty stout. And now when it runs, it's lightly touching the bottom at all times, which has caused a little wear in 8 batches. You can see down here there's a little bit of wear starting to happen on the nonstick surface. It's basically the same principle as roasting beans on the stove in a cast iron skillet with a wooden spoon. The reason I got this is so I can use it outside. I'd heard that roasting inside is a mess and can set off your smoke alarms, which I don't know if this could or not. It doesn't seem that smoky when I'm using it, but I'm outside. I'm either in the garage or out on the patio. The biggest mess, I think, is the chaff it creates after you dump out your beans. There's a lot of chaff floating around, so that would make a mess in the kitchen. Cleaning. The nonstick part is really easy to clean. This rod, the directions say to clean it after every use. It's fine. What is a bear to clean is this lid. I do 2 roasts. I don't clean in between. I do 2 roasts and then clean. I do 2 roasts every weekend, and that does us for the week for coffee. The other thing on this lid is this handle. It's 2 pieces. It's a cup and a knob, and it held water. So I took a round file and I notched out grooves so the water could escape. This is the heat control. The unit comes with very basic directions, so it won't teach you how to roast coffee. You can see some red marks on here. That's white eraser. That's the temperature I'm going to roast at today. And the first roast I burnt, and the second roast I was too light. That was my first 2. We ground them anyway, and the first one that was burnt actually is probably more like a dark French roast because it tasted just exactly like Starbucks, which is too dark for me. The second roast, the one that was too light, I think I pulled before the first crack was finished completely. And it was terrible. It tasted like tea. But after that, the learning curve is pretty good. It's not precise, but it's much better than buying coffee from the store, even if you mess it up, even if you're not consistent with your roast. But I've been recording everything. I think that's a good idea. I want to get to the point where I can just run it and not have to concentrate so much on what everything's doing in there. Another thing too, I checked out, I put a heat gun on it because I wanted to see if it was true to the thermostat down here. But what I found was the center of the roaster is much hotter than the edges. So it can vary tens of degrees actually from the middle to the sides. And so what I do while I'm roasting, you'll see, is you have to be careful you don't flip the lid off. What'll happen is the beans won't migrate to the edge all the time, and so I'll tip it. I'll stir it a little bit a couple times to try to get a more even roast throughout. Another thing it does that you should probably know about, and I'm not sure if the directions told me or I read this somewhere, it has an auto reverse. If it gets stuck, it'll turn around and start going the other way to loosen itself. I've done 8 roasts. In 8 roasts, it's only happened once. I use a recommended amount of beans per roast, and that's 6 ounces by weight. And I learned that from a reviewer named Jane on Amazon, and it's a great tip. I would spend hours trying to figure out how many beans to put in there. That's a real time saver and a great tip she put on there, and I want to thank Jane for that. And it's true because I tried to have a more even roast. I tried to put fewer beans in on one roast, and they just didn't turn correctly, so it made a big difference. This is my roasting equipment setup. I bought a scale because I wanted to get to exactly 6 ounces by weight of the beans as recommended on the review. That ends up being very, very close to 8 ounces, 8 fluid ounces in a measuring cup, so I used it once to weigh. But I brought it out because I want to show the difference between before and after weight. Also, the bigger measuring cup is that I want to show you the size difference too after the beans are weighed. You can see how tiny they are. They look like little green peanuts before they're roasted. Colanders, the tip I got for cooling was tossing back and forth between the colanders. I did add a little more equipment because I've got it on hand. A Makita leaf blower. I put it on the lowest setting, and I'll stir the beans and cool them quickly with this, just carefully so you don't blow the beans all over the ground. That gets rid of a whole lot of chaff when you do that. Also, I like this bigger colander because it's got big holes in case there's any gravel in the beans. I've had that before with coffee that I used to get from Jamaica. I'd find some gravel would be making noise in the grinder. The other Makita tool I use is this little vacuum when I grind. This gets rid of more chaff. I run it before I open the thing up, and even after I open it, I'll lightly go over the top and get that loose chaff off there. It doesn't make any flavor difference that I know, but it's messy, and so the little vacuum keeps everything nice and clean. We're right at 7.5 minutes. You can hear we're starting to get some first cracks. It's not super even, it's not a drum roaster. A little over 11 minutes. You can start to see the chaff. It's kind of greenish looking, and that can make what you're trying to determine the color a little hard sometimes. With this roaster, I just kind of try to look at the overall picture, the overall color. It smokes like this throughout. When I checked out roasting, I had envisioned that I would be filling the whole neighborhood with the aroma of roasting coffee, and it stinks. It smells like hay. You get used to it. It smells good after your second or third batch, but it doesn't smell like coffee coming out of a coffee shop. But I like it. I'm going to stop this roast right at 19.5 minutes. One thing that's really important is when you cut this off, you want the stir stick to be perpendicular to the handles. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time getting those beans into the colander. It's light, but it's getting darker, and they keep roasting for a little bit after you dump them out too. If I roasted it like 215 degrees, whatever I could guesstimate on the dial. I didn't adjust the temperature at all last time I did, and actually the batch turned out the best ever, so I'm going to just try it this way today though. You can see the chaff all flying around. They're hot. This would be a mess inside. Okay, the roast is finished, and what I wanted to show you here is what happens to the weight. We lost an ounce of weight. You can see the beans here compared to the roast, the green compared to the roasted. What you can't see is the volume on here, but this is showing 2 cups when we started with 1. So the volume of the beans, they've doubled in size almost. I'm shooting for a city roast, and I think I'm hitting it pretty close. Although you can probably see there's a lot of variation in the browns from light to dark, and that I think is by nature of the roaster itself. You know, probably wouldn't win any contests, but I like it because you can hear it, what's going on, and you can see what's going on with that roaster. You do have to expect it not to be consistently performing up with every roast. The second roast, first one I went to 19 minutes and 30 seconds. The second one I ran up to 23 minutes, and it turned out lighter, and I think that was just because of a tiny incremental twist of the thermostat on the roaster. My whiteboard marks are pretty fat, so I think that was probably why it took longer and ended up a little bit lighter. But I'm pretty sure they're going to taste great. Good luck roasting.